Hi, everybody, and welcome to the show. I'd like to wish you all a good morning, a good evening, a good night, wherever you are in this beautiful world of ours. We have a very special guest coming on the Shadow Files tonight, and he is somebody that everybody who is well versed in the paranormal will know all about. If you don't know who he is, then I will let him basically explain everything, and you'll be very surprised. But the big lesson from tonight's show is that if you start out investigating, please take the advice from the right people and don't go down the wrong path, because that can lead you to some horrible places in paranormal investigation. Now, Joe Franke, who is our guest tonight, he had the, how do you put this? He had the best luck in meeting the right people very early on in his career in the paranormal investigation field, and basically that changed his entire life. Okay, we have Joe Franke with us now. How are you, Joe?
I'm well, thank you.
That's
How are you, my friends?
we're good. We're good. I was just saying in the introduction that when you first start out in the paranormal investigation field, you do have to do it the right way, and you do have a story to tell about how you got involved. But I'd like to know where you first got your interest, and then what led you to that chance encounter which changed your life forever.
Well, it's a very good question, and one that I do get often, and I'm happy to tell it. I guess I'd say it all started back when I was 3 years old, back in 1971. I was very close with my maternal grandfather. I was named after him, actually, and he was very proud of that fact. And I mean, I don't want to go so far to say as I was his favorite, but I probably was. And my grandfather was a very religious man, Roman Catholic. Uh, Used to work on the railroad for many, many years, and be used to getting up at 4 in the morning. And what he would used to do is he used to go to mass almost every day. He'd go to church. They had a 5 or 5:30 mass. And anyway, so what happened was one night, it was a Monday night. I remember my mom told me this story, and I actually asked her to write it down and put it in an email back in 2017, because I said, Mom, you're not going to be here forever, and I'd like to have this story in your words. So I'll tell it to you. So my parents had put us to bed. We had bunk beds, my brother and I, and I'm on the bottom, he's on top. And my parents are out in the living room watching Monday Night Football. And all of a sudden, I guess I came out into the living room. My eyes were closed. I was sleepwalking. And I said, "What, Mom? What, Mommy? Someone called Joe. Somebody called Joe." And now I remember a light and a voice. And I remember it like it was, 5 minutes ago. This will never leave me. And I heard this voice saying, Joe, Joseph. Actually, it was Joseph. Come with me. It is time. Come with me. And my mother and father looked at each other and said, he's just having a dream. He's sleepwalking. So she put me back into bed. A minute or two later, same thing. I come running out into the living room, or walking out into the living room. And I guess I'm standing there with my eyes closed saying, Mommy, someone's calling my name. Someone's calling me. So again, she puts me back into bed, and next thing you know, the phone rings, and it was my grandmother, her mom, and she's like, "I can't wake up your father." What my grandfather used to do ritualistically is that he had an easy chair in their bedroom, and he would retire up to bed, and before he'd get into bed, he used to sit in the chair and read passages from the Bible. And my grandmother used to get frustrated with him because I guess he would frequently fall asleep, and she'd have to go wake him up to get into bed. So this one night though, she couldn't wake him up. So she calls my mother frantic, and what had happened was he had passed away, and they think that he fell asleep while reading the Bible and passed away in his sleep peacefully. Now, It's a wonderful story, and I tell it when I lecture. I said, this is what I call my divine experience, because I believe that because of my connection and my closeness with my grandfather, I felt God calling him when he passed away. And no one would ever convince me otherwise, but that was my divine connection. And, you know, that Bible that he had on his lap when he passed away is the Bible I take with me to every case. For a minute, Fernando, I may have even showed you that when I saw you
Yeah,
a
yeah.
couple of months ago. That is the actual Bible. And I asked my mother some years ago, because I remember she gave it to me about 20 something years ago, maybe closer to 30 years, because she knows I'm in this work. And she was always terrified. She's like, I don't like that you're doing this. I don't like that you're doing this. I'm like, Ma, it's been 30 years. She goes, I don't care. I don't like that you're doing this. So I had asked my mother one day, I said, Ma, can you just reconfirm to me that this is the actual Bible? Because I do have a couple of other Bibles that were family Bibles. I said, I want to make sure that this is the one. And she's like, as best as I can remember, that is the exact Bible. So I only have my uncle left, my mother's brother, God bless him, he's 83 years old. And I remember I think it was last summer, I was helping him move, and he had a couple of Bibles that he gave me that were in the house. They lived there for almost 60 years, so he had all kinds of stuff. And he's like, Joe, if you want these. So I took them. So I said, Uncle Joe, he's also named Joe. I said, Uncle Joe, can I show you this? And I always keep my stuff in the car. Just you never know when you're going to need it.
Yeah.
My kit. And I showed him the Bible, and I asked him the same question, and he said, without a doubt, that is the same Bible that my dad had. So that means everything to me. That Bible probably has more power, uh, than anything, and
Yeah.
I know it's protected me, as well as my loved ones looking out for me. But over the years, so anyway, fast forward about 15 years. I was 18 years old, just a couple of months out of high school. I actually put my high school picture up in my program just to show people that's what I looked like when I met the Warrens. And my girlfriend, who is my wife now of almost 33 years, said, "Hey, we were just newly dating." She's like, she saw in the local newspaper that the Warrens are going to be lecturing the next town over. I think it was a Friday night in September, and so I said, "Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun." Now I had heard of Ed and Lorraine Warren. I'd seen him on television and heard him on the radio, but I'd never met them in person. So, as fate would have it, we go there. Lorraine is at the table, selling tickets for the event, talking to people. She was such a sweetheart. And she looks at me and she cocks her head to the side. I remember the look on her face. It's that look you give someone who's like, I know this person. I just can't place the name, or I can't place where I know this person. And she's looking at me. She says, honey, have we met before? And I said, no, Lorraine. And I said, I've heard a lot about you folks. I'm very excited to be here tonight and meet you. And she's looking at me. She goes, there's something about your aura. She was reading my aura, that supernatural glow that emanates from all of us.
Yes.
And she had that ability to read auras. And she goes, there's a reason why you're here tonight. She said, make sure you see Ed and I after the show.
Wow.
So I was very excited and said, okay, no worries. So we went through the program and the show ended, and Ed's packing up with Tony. He's like, come on, let's get out of here, Lorraine. I'm hungry. They used to go out to a diner every time they did an investigation or a lecture. And they'd regroup at the diner, have a bite to eat, and we would talk about the cases. And from the looks of me, I've had a few cases. So, um, so we go to the diner, and she's sitting across from me, holding my hands. My wife's to my left, Ed's across from her. And she said, honey, what I'm doing is I'm looking at your aura, and I can tell from your aura that you are meant to do this work. She said, would you like to come and work with Ed and I? And I'm like, oh, yeah. I didn't skip a beat. So that's how I met them originally. And I was invited into, and they took me in their embrace and basically took me in as family. And that's why I tell everybody, I said, they were, people are like, well, what were they like? I said, as people, I said, they were just like grandparents to me.
Wow.
And the funny thing is that my wife and I are at the age now, just almost exactly, that the Warrens were when I met them.
Yeah.
So again, I was 18 years old. I'm going to be 57 years old. So this is how long I've been doing this, almost 40 years. And they took me under their wing and taught me just about everything I know. And they used to have classes at a little a place in Newtown, Connecticut called Hawley Manor. It was like a restaurant / inn, I believe. The building's still there, but it's under a different name. And there was this little back room, not much bigger than a large coat room. And I remember the classes were on Monday nights for about 2 hours. We would meet them there, and there was about 6 or 7 people. There's, my wife and I, and then a couple other people I remember who I haven't seen in probably 30 years. These are people that are no longer in the work. Some of them, I'm not sure if they're still around anymore, and this is where Ed would bring in his files and his videotapes and his audio tapes and photographs. And he would basically stand up there like a teacher and at the head of the class and say, "Okay, kid, listen." He used to call me kid. "Okay, kid, listen to this now. I want to get you. I want you to listen to this." And that's when I first heard the audio tapes and saw the pictures from Amityville and about the Annabelle doll and the cases that the Conjuring movies were based on, because all of this stuff happened before I met them.
Yeah.
The Rhode Island case was in the early 70s. I was a toddler. Amityville happened in 75, 76. All like early to mid 70s era. And then there were other cases later on after I met them. Some of them I was involved in, some of them I wasn't. The case, the haunting in Connecticut, the house literally is 15 minutes from me. I actually passed it the other night when I went I'd have an MRI done at the hospital, which is almost directly across the street. And I remember him saying, "Hey kid," he goes, "I got a really bad case up near where you live." He goes, "But you're not ready for it yet." And he was right. This was 1987, I think. And I had just joined them. And he's like, I think it was a couple of years before I actually was out on a case on my own.
Yeah.
You don't just throw someone to the wolves, especially when you're dealing with this kind of thing. Baptism by fire, yeah, but not by
well, there's baptism by fire, then there's baptism by fire.
I know I'm giving it the long-winded answer, but that's how I got started into work. And they gave classes for many, many years, and of course those classes grew. I've met a lot of friends that are veterans. Some of them are still involved in the paranormal work. Some of them are passed, unfortunately. Some of them just kind of disappeared. There's actually Fernando, I don't know if we talked about this when we were at the Enfield home, but there's actually 3 really good investigators that I know that were involved in the Enfield house that are no longer in the work because of the house. That was like their Amityville. This was a very, very bad case back in the day. Today things are more quiet, I believe, because I spent the day up there on Wednesday. I was there for basically the whole day, and it felt very peaceful, very homey. But then again, I also think, and I've been told by some gifted psychic friends, that there's something that's lying in wait. And I'm like, well, is it lying in wait for me? And like, we don't know. I don't know. I said, well, I really am convinced that whatever was there back in the day is no longer there, but I can't tell for sure.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel as heavy. It doesn't feel as bad as it did back in 2007, 2008.
I don't want to cut you off at all.
No, go ahead. You cut me off.
But I have, I do want to get into the Enfield house, with Jay and Elga, but I have to ask, for the people who have, let the old saying goes, living under a rock, that don't know who Ed and Lorraine Warren is. Can you give us a little, just so the more famous, you can add movies, you can add their books, because I actually heard about Ed and Lorraine Warren before the Amityville movie came out. That's when they became mainstream. But I believe one of their books the Haunting, was it, or something like this?
Yes,
Yeah, I found it in an
The
old
Haunting.
library when they used to exist. And but who is Ed and Lorraine Warren for people who might not know?
Well, Ed and Lorraine met when they were teenagers. Ed was in the Navy. Lorraine actually grew up not too far from where I live here in Milford, Connecticut, and she went to a special girls' school. I guess is I think it was called Laurelton Hall, and she used to get in trouble, I guess, by the nuns because she could see their auras and would tell them things about themselves, and the nuns would get upset, because she would tell them things that would upset them, I guess. But they met very young, and got married very early because they were married for 60 some odd years. And I mean, they fell in love. I mean, they were artists when they were younger. They would paint, or Ed would sketch and paint, and over my uh, right shoulder here, you'll see a painting on the wall. I don't know how well you can see it. A painting of a haunted house with a flying witch on a broom. Ed painted that. I don't know when it was painted, but it was many, many decades ago. And I'm proud to have that. That was given to me by them many years ago.
Wow.
And so they were artists. So what they would do is I'm sorry, until he was from the ages of 5 to 12, lived in a haunted house in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And his dad was a state trooper, state police officer. And he would say that just about every night, he would see this image or this phantom apparition, what have you, emerge from his closet area of his room, and it would kind of morph from like a mist, and it would take the shape of like an old woman, and it scared the bejesus out of him. But then he would tell his dad about it, and his dad was pretty unmoved by it and said, son, everything happens for a reason. There's a reason why everything happens in the universe, and so they eventually, I guess, moved out of the house. He was there until he was about 12 years old, but he said he used to have these experiences. And, so he met Lorraine, and with, Ed's background and fascination with ghosts and spirits, and Lorraine's abilities as a clairvoyant and light trance medium, she, they kind of, formed this formidable team. And what they would do as artists is they used to drive around, and Ed would see this house on a hill, say it looked kind of creepy and haunted, and Lorraine would say, "Yeah, honey, there's something about that house. Not necessarily evil. Not everything is negative.
No.
Evil.
No.
I have beautiful stories I could tell just as much as the creepy ones, but people seem to want to hear the creepy ones. Everybody likes a good scare. The only difference is the stories I tell are real.
Yeah.
And so what they would do is they'd pull up the side of the road. Ed would hop out and do a quick sketch of the house. And then he'd give the sketch to Lorraine and send her up to the front door. And she would knock on the door, ring the bell, and introduce herself and say, my husband and I were driving by your home, and we kind of were fascinated by it. So my husband sketched this picture of your house. And most people are like, oh my God, that's beautiful. And they would invite them in for coffee. And they would sit and talk. And so that's how they got their foot in the door, so to speak, literally. And in 1952, they formed NESPR, which is the New England Society for Psychic Research. And that's why I say that they were kind of the pioneers in this field. I don't call it an industry. This for me is a vocation. It's not an occupation.
Yeah.
This isn't a job for me. This is a calling, a vocation. And that was solidified by the fact that the Warrens chose me. It's not like I had to fill out an application, or something like that, or win a raffle. They chose me, and I feel that I was destined to go there that night and meet them, because look at, some almost 40 years later, I'm still here, thank God,
Yeah.
and I'm still doing the work, and my work is really twofold. Number one, I want to help people. I want to help people that may have a paranormal affliction. It's not as common as you would think. A lot of the stuff that we deal with can be explained away as mental illness, some kind of psychosis, schizophrenia, But I'm not a medical professional. I don't make that determination. But we do ask, when people come to us for help, I do ask them some very, very tough questions. And I tell them right up front, I'm going to ask you some tough questions. Some of them may be embarrassing, some may be tough for you to answer. I'm not asking them to make you feel bad or embarrass you. I'm asking you because I'm trying to get to the root of the problem. Almost like a root cause analysis. Okay, you tell me what's been happening in your home or your place of business, or what's happening to you or a family member. I need to know why. We need to get down to the nitty gritty and find out why.
Yep.
Let's search through the sea of weeds to find the flowers, and let's figure this out. And I've found that unfortunately a lot of people are not willing to do that, whether they're scared or they're just not on the level. I've had people that try to fool you and like, oh, I just think it's neat that Joe came to my house, and I don't do that. I'm not a circus sideshow. I said this is real. We take this very seriously. But most people will open up to you. I said, look, I ask tough questions like, is there any history of physical or sexual abuse in the home? Any history of the occult practices? Anybody use a Ouija board, seances, any form of divination?
Yeah.
And divination, as defined, in the Catholic religion anyway, which I am Roman Catholic, and the Warrens were, is the art or practice of trying to find hidden information or foretell the future through supernatural means.
Yeah.
Like using a Ouija board and saying, give me the next 6 Powerball numbers so I can win the lottery. It doesn't work that way.
No.
As I explain it, and in my humble opinion, again, and people can believe whatever they want, and I don't try to push my beliefs on people, is that God does not mean for us to know our future. Okay? And I asked my audience, I asked this the other night, I said, is there anyone in this room that if given the chance or the opportunity to know the time and date and manner of your death, would you want to know that? Not one person raised their hand.
No.
Every once in a while I get some wise guy that will. And I'm like, really? Well, I respect that. That's your opinion, and you're entitled. But, who would want to know when they were going to die and how they were going to die? I mean, I want to die of old age when I'm 120, to be honest with you. But,
Yeah.
I don't know. So, when we're looking for information that we're not meant to know, that is, at least in the Catholic religion, it's a sin, because it goes against the first commandment: thou shalt not put false gods before me. And that false god, or could be money, power, pornography, anything that you put before God, is against the first commandment. So, anyway, I know I digress a lot, guys, but so the Warrens started their journey back in, earlier than 52, but 1952 is when they founded the New England Society for Psychic Research, and they were involved in some of the most iconic cases. The Amityville case. I don't know how many people are around that haven't heard of the Amityville horror. Well, it wasn't the Amityville horror. It was just another case to them back in 1975. Then you have the Harrisburg haunting, which is the basis of the first Conjuring movie. The house in Rhode Island. Now, I've been to that house many, many times years ago, not recently. Years ago when the Sutcliffes owned it, and very nice people. I found the house to be intriguing. I love history. I love old buildings. But I found the house to be very loving and quiet. I didn't get any actual tangible evidence of there being demons lurking around there. There's just not. Those are all stories made up by people that are greedy and want to make money off it. Now it's not illegal, but I believe it's immoral to bring people there, charge them exorbitant amounts of money, and then pull the wool over their eyes, so to speak, and then BS them.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, that depending on what your intentions are, the cost can go up. So if you're a YouTuber with a YouTube channel and you're filming there, and for footage that you're going to put on your YouTube channel, I hear that it's more expensive. And then I also hear that the current owner needs to approve any footage before it's uploaded. Now, again, these are just things people have told me, so I can't, confirm or deny them. But I think that's just wrong. I just think that's wrong. And now there's a lot of controversy, as you gentlemen may be aware of. There's so much controversy out there in the paranormal field, and it saddens me. I don't take part in any of it. I won't give an opinion on it publicly. We can talk privately about it, and I'll tell you how I feel. But so the Conjuring, the Devil Made Me Do It case, which was the Conjuring 3. Gary, the case of the Enfield Poltergeist in the UK was the basis of the Conjuring 2. It was very loosely based on it, though.
Yeah.
With the nun and everything. I mean, a lot of that stuff didn't happen. That was Hollywood's version. Hollywood takes a lot of liberties with these movies, as they do basically with any movie. But I've always said, if they really just took the time to tell the real story as it actually happened, it's far more terrifying.
Yes.
It's far more frightening to hear what really happened. But the thing, like the movie The Exorcist, where the head's spinning around and everything, that never happened.
No. as you know, we've had when we were chatting the other night, I did talk about some of the experiences that I've had, and that didn't happen.
Yeah. For sure. I am one that truly thinks that Hollywood is just trying to make a buck. So they're trying to grab every story they can and over dramatize it, which is giving a false, ideology to people, that thinking that everything, a paper flies, oh, it's a demon. I've heard, I've seen so many YouTubers, just walking through a property and, they hear a bump. Oh, it's a demon. Like everything is like, they're. And
you're absolutely right. Yep.
And it's utterly ridiculous. I mean, sometimes a location could be actually active and might have an entity, but that entity is a person just like us, except not in a physical form. So I would find it very disrespectful that somebody calls me a demon, because that would be right up there as someone calling me an asshole. So it's like,
I couldn't agree with you more. It's true. I mean, I understand the reason they do it. They mention the name demon because I guess how the algorithms work. That's what grabs people's attention. That word demon. I tell folks, demonic activity is very rare, and possession is rarer still. There are actually degrees or stages of demonic possession. And depending on who you ask, they'd say there's 3 or 4, but I even say there's 5.
Yeah.
You start out with a vexation, which is more of an annoyance. You have a glass slide across the table and smash on the ground, a piece of paper fly off, and it might happen once or twice over the course of a week or two, and then it stops abruptly. There's no other activity. Then you get into infestation, where these kind of things happen more frequently, almost on a daily basis, and they're designed to scare you, to unnerve you. From there, you go into oppression, where people are oppressed with things like physical attacks, lack of sleep, mental attacks, illnesses. It affects your relationships, your job, your financial situation. And that's oppression. Then you get into obsession, and those two flip flop. It doesn't happen in any particular order usually, but you can have any one of these stages and not have the other. But obsession is more of thoughts, where they implant these let's call them demonic beings. They implant thoughts of suicide or thoughts of doing someone harm, yourself or someone harm. And they're thoughts that you just can't shake. You lose sleep because you can't get these thoughts out of your head. And you're like, this is something that I would never think about. I wouldn't think about, consider suicide. Why am I having these thoughts? And then finally, the last one would be possession, where something actually takes over your physical body. Now, it's not a permanent thing. It can't take your soul because you have free will. and that's one thing that even God won't meddle with is free will. That's why people say, well, why would God let all this happen, and these wars and people being killed and children's hospitals being bombed? I said, because he created all of us and gave us all free will. And he's probably sitting up there going, oh my God, what did I do? But, and these demonic entities, of which there are many, there's a whole hierarchy. There's probably 1,800. And you can have more than one afflicting you at the same time. You could have hundreds. If you ever see where someone says, I am legion, well, that means I am many. And there's different levels of it. And this could be a whole nother show, but so I talked about vexation, infestation, obsession, oppression, and then possession.
I'm sorry, but Gary, you heard that, right?
I did. I'm already taking that as a promise that he will be back for that other show.
Yes, that's how I took it.
Well, there's guys, there's so much to talk about, and once I get going, I never seem to shut up. Because it's all kidding aside, though, I'm so passionate about what I do.
Yes.
And I always am careful to tell audiences, look, I'm nobody. I don't know everything. I don't profess to know everything. I'm still learning myself. There are things that, like, God, I didn't know that before, and I'll add that to my
repertoire,
arsenal.
Yeah.
And I try to mix up my lectures, my talks, and I have like a presentation that I show photographs, I play audio, video, and I'll tell people, I just learned this from a Catholic priest friend of mine or an exorcist priest friend of mine. There's a lot I still don't know.
Yeah.
My mentors, God rest their souls, are gone now. I work closely with some very gifted people. And like I said, I don't care if you've been doing this for 5 months or 50 years. We can all learn from one another.
Always.
No one of us is any better than anyone else. We all put our pants on the same way every morning.
Well, not everybody.
Gary, we talked about this the other day.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said, not everybody. There are people that do get that putting the pants on wrong. Not me, but there are some out there.
That's true. No one's better than anyone else. I don't care what your social status is, how much money you make, what family you came from. It doesn't matter. They're not making coffins lined with pockets. You can't take it with you.
No, exactly.
Once we pass on, we're all equal. And I don't know if I've said this to you guys, Gary. I think I mentioned this the other day. There's a famous quote that I use by President Ronald Reagan. It says, he said one day, and I never forgot this. He said, it's not enough to be equal in the eyes of God. We need to be equal in the eyes of one another.
Exactly. Yep.
And unfortunately, I don't think that'll ever happen.
No.
But, I live by the golden rule. I try to treat people as I would want to be treated.
Yep.
And if there was more of that in this world, it'd be a happier place, I'm sure. A lot less aggression and fighting. But, the way I view things is, look, we're all brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
We all come from the same creator. At least that's my belief anyway. We all come from the same creator, and we're all related in some way, shape, or form, regardless of your race, creed, color. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. All right. So let's jump to cases, right? Take out of the conversation the big name cases that everybody knows. They've made movies about them and things like that.
Yeah.
When you've gone out with first part of the question, when you've gone out with Ed and Lorraine Warren, what is the most memorable case that you've been on with them which hasn't made it to Hollywood? And then the next part of the question is, obviously, we don't want to base the whole episode on Ed and Lorraine Warren because it's about you. A lot has happened when you've gone out on your own, and what have you found case-wise that has been very interesting, and then something will have happened that you've gone, that's exactly what I was taught by my mentors, and that brings you back to the whole, yes, there's a lot to this.
One.
Yeah, wow. To think back, there's many cases, and they were so long ago. But I mean, there was this one case that Ed called me one day, and he's like, "Hey kid, you got your equipment ready?" I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" And he said, "There's a case." He goes, "There was this case in, I believe it was Shelton, Connecticut, Seymour or Shelton. It started with an S. I'm going back, 30 plus years probably." And the woman, it was an elderly woman that lived alone. Elderly, she was probably in her mid 70s. So that's not elderly to me now. Maybe back then it was. And she was a very religious woman. Had a lot of religious relics around the home, crucifixes, pictures of Mary and Jesus. So she's a very religious woman. But I guess Ed had gone to the house by himself that day. And because he got a call from this woman, and she said, "Ed, please, can you come over? I need your help." And she sounded in distress. So he said he rushed over there, and the front door was ajar a little bit, and he was calling out her name. She's like, "I'm in here. I'm in the back. I'm in the bedroom." So he goes in. He walks up to the bedroom door, and he looks in. And I remember him telling me this. He said he could see her laying in the bed facing the other way, so her back was to him, and she had the covers pulled up, and I won't say her name, but I'll say her name was Mary. And I said, "Mary, I'm here. What's up? What's the matter? What's the matter?" And all of a sudden, he said the covers fell right on the bed. She disappeared. And Ed's like, he said he was at that point. He goes, "Uh-oh, I knew something was up. That's not good."
No.
So he said he left the house in a hurry. He says as he was going through the living room, he said all the pillows on the couch come flying at him.
Oh wow.
So a couple hours later, I get a call. He's like, "I want you to get all your equipment. I want you to go to this house tonight, camp out there, set up your monitors, set up your video equipment, your audio equipment, try to capture some evidence." So he said, I'm going to call Brian too. There's another guy. So we never send people out alone.
No.
Now, have I gone on cases alone? Yes. So, full disclosure there. I don't want to sound hypocritical, but anyway, so I called Brian and I said, "All right, I'll meet you there at 8:00. I get there and I was running a little late. I don't know, due to traffic. I was probably about 15, 20 minutes late. And I pull into this driveway. I remember it was like a semicircle, and Brian he's outside with another gentleman I had never met, and Brian had worked for a local not a news station, a local access TV programming station, so he had access to a lot more equipment than I had, but I brought mine. And I get out of the car, I'm looking at him, and he looks nervous, and I said, "Brian," I'm like, "why didn't you go in and start setting up?" He looks at me, he goes, you don't understand, Joe. He goes, "I wasn't going in the house until you got here."
Oh man.
And I'm like, Ed used to call him the chickenologist. I'm like,
The chickenologist.
I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "You guys could have had this stuff set up." And then I didn't know you were bringing someone with you. And actually, Ed got upset later on because he didn't authorize for this other guy. But it was a friend of his from work that was helping him with the equipment. So we went in, we set up, and went through the house and did our investigation. I don't remember if we actually got anything. We did smell some foul smells. I wouldn't say it was like rotting flesh, but very bad smells that seemed to be emanating from the basement. And so, guess who? I went down the basement by myself because I was very apprehensive, and I respect the power of these things, but I'm not afraid to go down there. So I went down into the basement, and you could see this foul odor. It seemed to move around, like wherever you went in the house, that smell was with you. And a couple of the pictures on the wall, there was one of Mary, Mother Mary, that was turned around. And crucifixes would be like knocked off the wall. I mean, I didn't watch them fly off the wall, but they'd be on the ground, and the nail would still be in place, that whatever was holding it. And I'm saying to myself, how could this happen? I mean, I know how it could happen now, but back then I think I might have been, in my early 20s, you know. So that was a fascinating case. I'm going from memory. Because I remember Ed said to me, he goes, this case is pretty bad. We may be able to write a book about this one. I do remember him saying that. And I went back many times after that. The woman eventually moved in with her sister and moved out of the house, and they sold it, I guess. But I don't remember if Bishop McKenna went in there. I'm trying to remember if the house was successfully cleansed or not. I mean, that's not too much of an interesting story, but I could tell you another one if you like.
Oh yes.
This is a case that I went out on my own with another investigator. It was years later. I was at a lecture with the Warrens. I used to attend most of their lectures because I like to help them in any way I could. I was also learning, and I also doubled as security for them because I was a big kid back in the day, 350 pounds, bench pressing 500 pounds. I was very strong. I also am a black belt in Taekwondo. So every once in a while the Warrens would have a unruly guest. I'm trying to be kind here. Jerk. And, they would, I don't want to say heckle the Warrens, but they would be disrespectful in their questions. Like, I remember one guy was like, I don't believe any of this crap. That's not the word he used, but I won't say it. I'll keep it clean. And Ed would just look at me and go like, give me a nod. And I just go up to the gentleman and say, look, I understand you paid for your ticket to be here, but if you're going to disrespect the Warrens, I'm going to ask you to leave. I said, if it happens again, I'm not asking. So, very rarely did I have to remove someone from one of their lectures, but I don't get that, to be honest with you. I find people to be very respectful. I've never had a problem. I don't want to digress too much, but I did have a problem one time, 20 some odd years ago. I was doing a lecture, and a gentleman, I was showing a picture on the screen, and a gentleman pipes up and he's like, well, I'm a photographer. I've been a photographer for 25 years. And I could tell that picture was photoshopped or manipulated. And instead of getting upset and angry, even though I thought it was rude the way that he worded it, I said, well, sir, listen, first of all, I want to thank you for the compliment because I took the photograph. He didn't know I had taken it. I said, I took the photograph. I said, I'm an hour away from home, away from my wife and little children. What do I have to gain by coming here and lying to you? So I put him in his place, but I did it professionally. I didn't yell, I didn't raise my voice, And so after the show, he came up to me and he was very, very contrite, very apologetic. And I said, look, sir, I don't mind people asking tough questions. I don't mind that people may have a different opinion and think I'm full of crap. I said, that's fine, you're entitled to that, but don't disrespect me.
Yeah.
I said, I've helped a lot of people in my career, and not for any financial gain or fanfare. I said, most of the cases, if not just about every one of them, other than say Enfield, most of the cases I've worked on are not publicized. We're not looking. I don't have a YouTube channel. I have a personal Facebook page. I think my daughter set me up with a TikTok page, but I don't use it. I'm not out there to try to gain and make money off of this. Where I make any money in my older years now that I'm retired is from my talks.
Yeah.
I charge a modest fee to speak at a library or a college. I'm not looking to get rich off of it, but it pays the bills and helps pay the gas and things like that. I do some paracons. I didn't up to a few years ago. I never did them. I just think that they're just What's that?
I've never attended one.
No, neither have I.
Some of the ones I've been to are actually fun. You get to meet a lot of nice people, and they get to tell these stories that people that may not have known the Warrens personally, but have heard of them and had a lot of love and respect for them. Rarely do I come across someone that disrespects them, because normally they won't say anything to my face. Because I'll tell them, I said, look, if you don't like In the Rain, their work, you don't agree with it, whatever you think or you've heard, that's fine. We're all entitled to our opinions. I said, but just keep your opinion to yourself.
Yeah.
Around me, because if you insult Ed and Lorraine Warren, you might as well just be saying it to me.
Mm.
It's not fair to insult people that are no longer with us and they can't defend themselves.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff going out there in the community where people are bashing them and saying they're full of crap and they're liars and they're making things up. And I said, those aren't the people that I knew, and I knew them intimately.
Yeah.
You didn't. These people didn't.
Well, that actually leads me to my next question, and that is,
yeah.
a lot of people do bash a lot of very good and very credible, be it paranormal, some say celebrities or well-known people in the paranormal field and paranormal locations as well. Now, I know there's been a lot of controversy over the Enfield house. Now, that is just people sour grapes a lot of things because they can't get there, so they'll say things and things like that. Now, that's not what we want to talk about because I like to believe in positivity and things like that. You've been there, you've witnessed, you have dealt with what was there firsthand.
Yes.
I'd like you just to go into a little bit of that.
Bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I respect every person to have their own opinion, but have an informed opinion.
Yes.
I lived this activity with the family, and it was bad for a while. And again, I talk about the case as it was back then.
Yeah.
Today, I haven't investigated the home. I haven't had a reason to. The family tells me about some activity that goes on, but no one's being hurt. Things aren't flying around hitting people in the head. I mean, don't give it recognition, as Ed used to say
yes.
to me. You say, don't give it any recognition. What troubles me is the people that come into the house, and I understand the family, allows people to come in and they charge them a nominal fee and it helps pay the bills. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But what bothers me is the people that come in, they may stay a night, might stay a whole weekend, and they get nothing. They don't get any evidence to speak of, really. That means nothing.
No.
That means nothing. But then, like you said, sour grapes or jealousy. It bothers me because then they're like accusing them of fraud and fakery. And
exactly.
Making the stories up. And like, no, I mean, the same thing happened with the Snedeker case. I'll get back to Enfield in a second, but the Snedeker case in Southington, Connecticut, which was the basis of the movie The Haunting in Connecticut. I wasn't directly involved in that case, but two of the investigators that were directly involved are really good friends of mine, John Zaffis and Chris McKinnell. John is Ed and Lorraine's nephew.
Yeah.
John's mother and Ed were twins, brother and sister. And Chris is their grandson. The Warrens only had one daughter, and that's Chris's mom. Now, they worked the case. They actually moved in with their family for 9.5 weeks and documented the goings on and what happened in the home. But yet, outsiders will come in and say, oh, you're making this up. You got behind on your rent and you needed the money. And I'm sitting here even today, and I'm like, why would someone make up a story like that and put their family through absolute hell because you're behind on your rent? That just makes no sense.
No.
It's actually stupid if you ask me. But, the haters out there, I just don't get it. I'm not a hater. I don't hate anyone. I don't have an enemy in the world that I know of. And I try to keep my integrity spotless. My integrity, I tell people, is not for sale. I'm not going to make something up. I'm not going to lie, for personal gain. I'm not going to lie for anybody else.
Yeah.
It is what it is. If nothing happened on a case, I'll tell you that nothing happened. That doesn't mean there isn't something there. So that brings me back to Enfield. I believe there's something very wrong with the land, with the area. That is a very old area, dating back 1700s. I mean, we live in New England. New England is the oldest part of the United States. But to say some remarks and accusations against these people, because you couldn't personally gained from their experience of their home. I understand one person or a couple of people offered to buy the house from them, and of course they refused. So then those people all of a sudden turn attack dogs against them.
Mm-hmm.
Now these are things I'm hearing. But when they tell me this, I have to believe them. My friends, I trust they wouldn't lie to me.
Mm-hmm.
But the hatred that I've seen, and to go so far as to make false accounts to track people or to follow people, or to moles, spy on people,
Mm-hmm.
and then to go so much further as to type texts and messages that are coming from you, but you're trying to disguise them as if they were coming from the family.
Yeah.
That, and I know this family, and I know they wouldn't say these things.
Yeah.
I know they have two beautiful twin daughters. Now I have twin daughters myself, but their twin daughters are still minors. They're not 18 yet, and the stress that this family has been put under, especially the girls, it's heartbreaking and it angers me. There's not much I can do about it, but say, hey, look, if my credibility means anything, they're not lying.
Yeah.
This is not a made-up story. What we went through back in 2007 to 2010 was very real, and I believe we did some good work there. Did we get rid of everything? Probably not. I don't walk around with a big S on my shirt. I'm not Superman. I'm a human being. I'm a mortal man. I'm not, I can't fight demons. I tell people all the time, I said, we do not exorcise people. I don't exorcise people.
Yeah.
What we can do as people, as brothers and sisters, as I said before, can pray prayers of deliverance, which are prayers, very strong prayers, that we can pray for the individual or for the family. If there is something, otherworldly, something, I hate the word demonic, but we'll use it for lack of a better term. If there's something evil there, that's something that needs to be left to the clergy.
Yeah.
Because only God could expel that. And the priests, would be obviously working in the name of God. So there's a big there's a big misunderstanding there too. People's like, oh, I was attacked by a demon. You see it up on their YouTube channel. Oh, I was attacked by a demon in the blank house, whatever they call it. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, no, you weren't. And people say, oh, I have a demon in my house. I said, if you had a demon in your home, in your life, you would know it.
Yeah.
You would know it. Believe me, it would be out to ruin you.
Yeah.
It wants your soul. It wants to break you, your family, everything you love. It wants to destroy you. I said, but just because you have a milk carton that fell out of the refrigerator doesn't mean you have a demon.
No.
But that's the narrative that these people go with, because that's what people want to hear. That's what gains views. It gains likes. And what does that turn into? It turns into money.
Exactly.
Money is the root of all evil.
Well, you and I, actually, all three of us know, because we've been around that long in the field, that the spirits don't come out to play on demand. So you can't, just from spending one night in there, go, the place is not haunted and diss everybody. It just doesn't work like that. You've got to take the time to get to know the place, and then that's when you get a much truer indication of what's actually going on. So
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Ed used to say that to me, Gary. Ed used to say to me, he's like, Joe, he says, spirits don't come on your time.
No.
They come on their time.
Yeah.
And the evil spirits or negative spirits that want to do you harm, they will come for you when you're at your most vulnerable moment. If you're under extreme depression or alcoholism or substance abuse or something like that, that's when it's going to attack. So someone like me, who's very strong, I tell people, I said, look, physical size and strength has nothing to do with this work. It helps when you're getting tossed across a room, but I said, you need to be strong spiritually, emotionally, and psychologically.
Yep.
I asked my audiences, if anyone here was in a home and all of a sudden they were they seem like they're pushed and pulled at the same time and thrown 12 feet across the room into a wall. I said, how do you think your brain would register that? What do you think you would do? I had one lady, she goes, well, I wouldn't run out.
Yeah.
And I said, ma'am, I'd probably respect you more if you'd just be honest with me. I said, you're a human being. The natural human response is you would be terrified.
Yes.
And you would probably get out of there, fast. I said, that happened to me. I give that example because I've been punched, scratched, bitten, burned, thrown across the room when I was 350 pounds like I was nothing. And was I scared? Bet your ass I was scared.
Yeah.
I'm human, But I got up and I brushed myself off and I'm like, is that all you got? And I said a few other choice words.
As we do.
If you are the investigator out there to try to help a family and they're terrified and they see you're terrified running out of the house, I mean, what does that say?
Yeah.
You just, then you shouldn't be doing this work.
No.
It's not fun and games, and that's what these people turn it into. And they go to these locations and they pay, for these to go to these locations and they pay handsomely. And it's funny because I'll be sitting here yelling at the TV downstairs in my man cave, and my wife would be like, "Are you okay? What's going on down there?" I'm like, "Look at these idiots! Where's your evidence? Show me something. What is that?" All of a sudden the video just cuts off and they have no more context.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and my blood pressure's up.
Oh my god!
My wife's just standing there shaking her head like, "What the hell's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
But it's all fraud. It's fake, and these people will walk into an abandoned school or hospital, and they'll get more evidence in the first 5 minutes of being there than I've captured in 10 years.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Anyway, we are, believe it or not, we are just about out of time. We're definitely going to have you back. No. I've still got 2 questions for you. The first one, which is a bit more of my wanting to know, I want you to go into the story about the dolls behind you on the wall.
Oh, okay. Well, the one to my right here, or left, is the replica of the Annabelle doll that was created for the movies, for Hollywood. Obviously, the original Annabelle doll was a Raggedy Ann doll.
Yes.
I have an exact replica, same year, same dress, everything, over my right shoulder. I'm looking at the screen, so I'm trying to get this right. So that's an exact replica of the actual Annabelle doll. Now, I will frequently bring that doll with me to a talk, just as a, just a show.
Yeah.
And even though I tell people, because a lot of people say, is that the real Annabelle doll? I say, no, I don't have the real doll. This is just a replica. But it took me a while to find it because they're very rare now.
Very.
To find the same size, the same penny, the same dress, everything. And so I'll bring that and say, well, this is, because a lot of people still don't know what the real doll looks like. People say, well, what is the real doll? They still think that the movie doll is the real Annabelle doll. So no. I'm assuming that they created a whole different doll because of,
dramatization, right. Hollywood trying to make money.
Yeah, Hollywood, but also because of the rights, legalities of it. I guess they couldn't use the Annabelle doll. No, so I collect things. Ed used to have what he called the Halloween room down in his basement, and it was just off of the museum. And to this day, I could never replicate it. I call this my Halloween / lighthouse room because I love lighthouses too. But I've got, you can't see them on screen, but I've got ghosts and stuff all over the place and pictures. And I don't have a museum. I do have a couple of artifacts that I took out of homes that I have blessed. I keep them in my shed because my wife won't let them in the house. She won't even let me bring that doll upstairs. She's like, keep it away from me. Keep it down there. I don't want to see it. I'm like, but it's not the real doll. I don't care.
Better safe than sorry.
But I have them because the movie Annabelle doll was handmade for me by a friend in Florida who actually makes these things. She made a 6-foot full life-size Pennywise, the clown from the movie It.
Yeah.
She makes them, and they're exact replicas, and she sells them. That's her business, and I think she makes them for Hollywood too. So I befriended her a few years ago at a convention, and she made this doll for me special. It actually has one green eye and one blue eye,
Oof.
so it was special for me.
Yeah.
And everybody gets creeped out by them, but I love them. I give them hugs before I go to bed.
So while we're talking about
So I mean,
Annabelle,
they didn't come from cases or anything.
No.
They're just things I've collected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like to share them with folks, and people get a kick out of it. Some people won't have anything to do with them. They won't come near them. They don't want to be the same room with them. But other people are intrigued by them. They say, well, this is what the real Annabelle looks like, but this isn't the real one.
Yeah. So you've actually, I'm assuming, been in the room with the real Annabelle in its little glass case?
Yes. I've actually held that doll about 3 or 4 times.
Do you get any kind of a
waltz with it?
Yeah.
But under Ed's supervision, I remember the first time I did, I was in the museum with Ed. I'll tell you a quick story. Ed used to call me up on a Saturday or Sunday and say, "Hey kid, what are you doing?" He always called me kid. "Hey kid, what are you doing today?" "Oh, not much, Ed. I was going to cut the grass. So what do you need help with?" He's like, "Well, come on down to my office." Now his office was right off the museum, and he goes, "I want to show you a few things." And he would do a lot of one-on-ones with me, and I'd go down there, and I know he loved me, and I loved him. Matter of fact, Chris, his grandson, my friend Chris, he said to audiences, he's like, "My grandfather loved him more than he loved me." And he was serious when he said it, and I'm like, "No, that's not true. He loved you, Chris." Well, anyway, so Ed would call me down there, and he would play tapes for me. He would grab an artifact from the museum, like the Shadow Doll, and tell me the story about it, or the little green dinosaur from the Galazzo case, this little plastic model dinosaur that was witnessed walking. Now this is a stationary plastic dinosaur, couldn't walk, but people said that this thing would walk across the room and a voice would come out of it. I wasn't there. Again, this happened before my time, back in 1980. And anyway, I lost my train of thought. Sorry, guys. I digress. But yeah, Ed used to call me down, and yeah, I'd spend a few hours with him. Or if he needed help, raking the lawn or something, I'd help him with something around the house, move a couch for him or something like that. To me, they were people.
Yeah.
They weren't like the world famous Warrens. They were people, because I got to know them, and John, I was talking to John recently, John Zaff, he's like, "Joe, you're family." And that choked me up a little bit, because I've always felt like family. They've always made me feel like family. Mm-hmm. But he's like, "Joe, you've been around. You're family." So, oh, my wife's sneaking by. Hi.
Hello.
Oh, she's hiding in the closet.
That's the laundry room.
Oh.
Probably got to do some laundry. So I'm sorry, Gary. Did I answer your question? Because
where I was going with that is, how do you feel, and what goes through your head when you're actually holding the real Annabelle doll, the real Annabelle?
Oh yeah, that's where I was going with that. Sorry. So yeah, I remember Ed. The doll is in a protective glass case in the museum. And there were a couple instances where, for whatever reason, he was going to move the doll or something, or move the case, and he allowed me to hold it. Now, I didn't hug the thing or waltz with it, but it'd just be like, pick it up, okay, that's enough, put it back, kind of a thing. But I've actually held the doll. My initial thoughts, obviously, psychosomatic.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you immediately think about the stories of what this doll did or was seen doing. I mean, this doll was seen standing. Now, Raggedy Ann dolls cannot stand. It's impossible. Mm-hmm. The nurses that own the doll would leave it on their bed and then come home from their shift and find it in the living room. Now, as I heard the story, that the nurses each thought that each was playing a prank on the other, until they finally got together on their story. They're like, "I didn't move it. I didn't move it." But it gave me this weird feeling. I haven't touched the doll, and this had to have been, God, almost 30 years ago. But the family, the daughter and the son-in-law own the home and all the museum and everything in it. I haven't been in the museum since Lorraine passed away. She died in 2019.
Yeah.
So it's been many years since I've been there, but it is an unnerving feeling. Personally, and I'll go out on a limb here, and I'll get my neck chopped off for this, but people ask me all the time if I think that the doll is still not possessed, but has an attachment. I don't think so. The Annabelle story happened over 50 years ago, back in like 1970, talking, 54 years ago. I don't think there's anything attached to the doll. There wouldn't really be any reason to be, but that's just my personal opinion. But any of the artifacts, just about every artifact in that museum has a story. I always tell people, I can show you a picture. Every picture has a story, but not the picture doesn't tell the story. That's why I get so long-winded, because I can show you a picture and take 20 minutes to tell you the story about it. But it's fascinating. It's a fascinating story.
It is. It is.
So yeah, the doll itself seems to be the most iconic item in the museum. I certainly wouldn't tempt fate. I wouldn't, pick it up and say, you're BS and throw the thing across the room, because people have done that with dire consequences in many years ago. There was a priest that picked the doll up and said, God is more powerful than the devil, and he threw the doll.
Oh.
Well, Ed told the priest, you're right, Father, God is more powerful than the devil, but no man is, no priest is. And on the way home, that priest was in a car accident and broke his leg. Thank God he wasn't killed. The car was totaled. And the priest told Ed later on that the last thing he could remember seeing in the headlights of the truck that he hit was the image of that doll.
Oh, wow.
That's a story that's been passed down by Ed Warren for many years, and I believe him.
Yeah.
But can the doll itself can't do anything. It's just an inanimate object. It's whatever may have been attached to it. Now, the story about Annabelle was that it was a little girl. Well, sorry, I screwed up my camera. It was a story of a little girl that had been killed in a car accident outside the apartment building where these nurses live. Well, a human spirit can't inhabit an object.
Yeah.
So obviously they were mistaken, but the women that owned it treated the doll as a human being. They would buy dresses for it, buy jewelry for it, sit it at the table when they were having breakfast. And then one day the doll's arms levitated onto the table, just like this. And of course it scared them, but it intrigued them. So that's when they thought, hey, there's a spirit inside this doll. And they called another friend that was, I guess, a medium, and they came and had a seance, which was never a good idea.
No.
And that's kind of when things started to take a more darker turn. And the doll, or the spirit, I should say, within the doll, actually physically attacked a couple of people.
Wow.
So I'll tell you another quick story, if I may.
Yeah.
My lecture the other night, a woman approached me before I started. She's probably about 80 years old, very nice older lady. And she said, I just wanted to introduce myself and tell you that the two nurses, or they were psychiatric aides, she said they weren't nurses, so she corrected that. She said they were psych aides at the Institute of Living in the Hartford, Connecticut area. She said, I was a nurse there who worked with them. And she said, I remember these women would come to work and tell us stories about the doll. Like, they'd leave it on the bed and find it in the living room or whatever. So that, to me, was more validation that these stories are true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I asked the woman for her name and phone number. She lives right in my town. I was floored by that. I said, would you mind if we get together and I interview you at some point? She said, not at all.
That's amazing.
Again, I'm still learning, but anyway, I'm sorry, Gary. Did you have another question? Did I answer that one?
No. That was good. That was good. I think actually I have so many more questions, but I think we'll have to do another interview later on because you've already committed to it, so we're good with that.
A part two.
Yeah, oh no, any time. I love talking about my work, and I'm happy to do it. I feel honored that you would have me on your show.
Oh well, we've been waiting for you for a long time, and this is going to be a very special episode. So, but yeah, I think we will leave it there for now. Oh man, I just want to keep going, but we'll leave it there for now. And if you have anything you want to say about any shows you have coming up, please let us know.
I would like to say, one thing I leave people with is always be kind, be gentle, and be humble. And if you are interested in this work, that's great. Just be interested in it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
The reasons I got into it was to help people. I was obviously fascinated by it. It's not for everyone, if you wanted to get in touch with me, my email address I can give you is jfranke at warrenlegacy.com, and that's JFRANKE at warrenlegacy.com. I'm on Facebook. I have a public Facebook page, just my personal page. You could also go into the warrenlegacyfoundation.com, the website. You could contact me through there. Anybody out there listening that needs help or feel they need help, we have people pretty much all over the globe that are here to help if you need.
Yes.
So I'll leave you with that, but just be careful out there for any investigators. Just be careful what you do, and seek out the knowledge of others. Not just me. There's a lot of good people in this world that probably know more than I do. But be mentored by the right people. Don't just grab a camera and audio device and go out and find an old graveyard.
That is the perfect
it's not
ending.
Safe to do that.
Because that's exactly what I started the whole show by saying. And yeah, thank you very much. And
thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, everyone.
It was an honor. It really was.